Hello and welcome to another live stream. Going to talk a little bit today. I thought I'd talk a little bit today as a kind of a open discussion on what is jazz, what is music, what is improvisation, and I'm not going to give any definitive or clear answers on that in an ultimate sense, but I'm going to give my take on that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So let's keep that as a running theme, and also talk a little bit about some of the shorts and things that I've been putting out there lately. So some of the topics and stuff like that. So as I look around and the internet and see different things, I hear things like jazz chords, jazz songs, and it's sort of a sort of question pops into my mind, like, does this genre sort of own any chords? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. There's clearly a genre of jazz, and what does improvisation mean on that? And also, what is the nature of sound and music? What are these different categories, and are there kind of umbrellas, for this? So sound obviously could be anything from noise to highly organized orchestral music, right? And so obviously music falls into this sort of organized system that we perceive as music, I guess. But and then improvisation is sort of a kind of a spontaneous spontaneous composition. So that's not necessarily jazz either, although it's a big component of it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject. Classical musicians improvise, rock musicians improvise, and blues musicians, and obviously jazz musicians. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Just as one kind of obvious example, on the idea of chords, right? So here's a E7 sharp 9, right? And this is a really famous example of a chord that Jimi Hendrix played. I believe it's on Purple Haze, if I remember correctly. So is it, a jazz chord? I would kind of say no. It's just a chord, right? Are there really jazz chords? I think you could probably argue that there may be some jazz progressions, but even then, it may break down at some point, because a lot of these progressions came from popular music and theater music, of a time period that jazz musicians liked and felt kind of fun improvising over. So anyway, that's kind of just a little thing that's been on my mind recently. And another thought I've got on this, just briefly, is that I remember watching a Steve Vai video way back, and he's talking about chord scales, and clearly demonstrating an incredible mastery of the topic of chord scales. So, and I don't think he would claim he's a jazz musician or anything like that. So he's kind of a rock guy, but to have some really good understanding of how music kind of operates, I think that's common to all musicians. So couple little things I've been warming up on. Talk a little bit about that. So I like to, I put out this video, which got, I don't know how many views. I think it's almost like 7,000. I've never had a video like that to get that many views in 24 hours, or maybe a little bit more, 36 hours or something. But it's on this little exercise that Walter Nemeth showed me. I took lessons from him many years ago. And you're just kind of moving these fingers around, right? One key thing, now that I have more than 1 minute to talk about it, because that was a shorts release. And Luke, I'll get to your question real quick in a minute. So one thing is lift your fingers at exactly the same time and leave the other fingers planted, right? So I hope that was clear in the video. Lift them at the same time and release them back down at the same time. See if you can kind of minimize how far from the fingerboard they leave, right? And just kind of gently, no need to go fast. I have so many students who just like, if I show them this, they're just like, just trying to do it as fast as possible. Just focus on accuracy, lifting at the same time, pressing, feel the strings, press the strings into the fingerboard. Be, really mindful and aware of what you're doing. So Luke, thanks for your question. How can I learn to improvise? Well, that's really a perfect question for kind of what I'm trying to talk about today. And one thing I would say is just try sounds, just pick an arbitrary spot. Maybe I shouldn't say arbitrary, but just pick a spot and like, what does that sound like? And connect your ear with what you're doing. So you may listen early on in your in one's development on any instrument, but on this instrument as well, is just play something, repeat it internally, and then just explore around. I would try to see it with a little bit of curiosity, like what does this sound like, and not really necessarily make any judgments on it. And eventually you'll want to kind of hear these things like kind of simultaneously or internally, maybe even just a little bit ahead of what you're doing. So you're kind of really playing what you're hearing. Once you can just kind of noodle around and try things, without any judgment on what it is, try to explore it like you're at a park you'd never been to, and you just want to like set out and see where this path leads, and this one, and look at this little shortcut and try this out. So that's what I would kind of recommend, is just trying things and then see if you can vamp a chord on iReal Pro or one of those programs and get into the sound of it. What's consonant, what's dissonant. Eric writes in, 2 other great blues rock examples are Stop from Bloomfield, Super Session album, and Hotlanta, all them by the Allman Brothers. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that, Eric. 2 examples of the 7 sharp 9. Yeah. And with Barney Kessel, I think in the video that I did a little ways back, right? Use the sharp 9 and the flat 9. So, trying to think of, kind of music as a sort of language and maybe dialect. Thanks for writing in. Noob Sabat 1 2 3 4. Thanks for writing in. Appreciate it. All right. So yeah, so to expand on this exercise, I think I did it in fifth position. That's usually where I show it. But if you find that you're struggling to reach on that, just move it over. I think I was showing a younger student this exercise right here in this position. Really get some kind of odd sounds out of the shape, but move it to different string sets. I think originally I had put that into the short, but I, I I ran out of the 1 minute mark. I had thought that the 3 minute shorts would come out, I think, a week or so ago, but it hasn't been included in my channel just yet. I've tried a couple times, and I have one 3 minute vertical video that is still being classified as a regular video. So I'm just waiting for that to happen because it would really help out. But yeah, thanks to all who checked out the short. It's so funny because that I expected it to have very low viewership and low engagement, and so very surprising to see maybe close to 7,000 views, which is just kind of mind-boggling. But welcome, very welcome. So, all right. So yeah, kind of back to the improvisation and the kind of the topic. So this is one thing you could bring into your session. What is my intention right now? What am I practicing? Am I practicing musicianship, basic musicianship, or am I practicing that something specific to jazz as a genre? And then what period of jazz are we talking about? Is it kind of the swing era? Is it sort of the bebop? Is it the hard bop? Is it some of the modal things that occurred? Is it sort of the more 70s, um, uh, rock, or even eighths? Is it the Latin kind of thing? So there's just so much to it. And I would really recommend taking everything that you can, maybe starting back with Charlie Christian, and I'm not going to get all the names here, but go up through Barney Kessel and Herb Ellis, Tal Farlow, that whole crowd of folks, Wes Montgomery, and then up into Mike Stern and John Schofield and Pat Metheny. But one thing that really appeals to me about jazz is that it's so the improvisation is such a key part of that style of music, and the sort of um, the exploration of it, and how that is a really key component to it. So if you listen to maybe a lot of um, rock tunes, it could have great guitar solos. I remember teaching few rock solos, and they're just really brilliant, like AC/DC. That's just such great lines, really. So it's so memorable. But that's gonna be that solo for that song, I would think. So that's who knows? Maybe it was improvised the first time, right? Come up with on the spot, but then you kind of go ahead and play it again. So I do apologize in advance if I mispronounce any names, but Hamid, welcome. Thanks for writing in. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so when you go through chords, let's say in the like key of C, kind of back to this topic of genre and chords, right? And a lot of popular music gonna have basically triads, right? And I'm just gonna demonstrate something here, which I think I've shown a little bit before on the channel. You're gonna have a lot of 1, 4, maybe 6, and 5. So that particular progression probably heard a whole bunch of times, right? So in in a lot of the more jazz-oriented tunes, check this out. You have the 4 chord. If you put a 4 chord, let's say we have F major right here. If we take this F here, right, and we replace it with a D, so in essence we have an F over D, right? Then we have a D minor 7, right? So that's still gonna have a very similar kind of function, right, to F, and it sounds kind of similar, right? The 6 chord, a lot of times in jazz tunes or this kind of thing, you might have a 5 of the 6, and the 6 might have a 7th in it, right? So little things like that, kind of digging into the nature of the sound and how these things are not necessarily kind of exclusive, I think, to genres, but maybe just different approaches to sort of the nature of sound, the nature of music, right? This is always gonna, once the ear hears that, it's gonna probably want to hear this note. So you probably felt that internally, and then I paused for a minute, and then okay, the confirmation, right? That note. But the nice thing is, once your ear gets acclimated to certain things and it's kind of becomes familiar, then the ear might want to hear other types of things, right? So right, okay, so what is this, right? So kind of took it in a different direction. So a lot of music plays around with your expectation, or your ear's expectations, and maybe sometimes throws you a little curveball or something a little bit different, right? So, and this gets into, and I had a comment about this recently. So I did some shorts on tritone substitutions, and I had a comment from a viewer, said he didn't understand it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but that's just kind of what I did just then. Is I took an F sharp chord, right, and I played an arpeggio on G7, right, and then I played F, right, because there's a relationship there that might be a little bit hidden at the moment. But if I had a C sharp 7, our ear is probably going to want to hear F sharp major, okay? And your ear will get kind of acclimated to that. So what you can do is substitute the tritone G7 the tritone, the root, a tritone away, and then build a chord on that. That would be the G7. And then you get a similar phenomenon, but a different flavor on it. So how does everybody feel about the tritone substitution, and does that make sense? Right, so I think the video that I gave, I played, if you know C7, if you know open C7 chord. So let's say you don't know that, just as an example. So if you know the C major chord in open position, and I'm just gonna pluck strings 5, 4, 3, and 2, and I'm gonna put my pinky on string 3, fret 3. I get C7. Okay. Now I'm gonna take this whole shape, this whole relative shape, and I'm gonna aim my first finger at this note, which would be G, and that is the root note of this chord. Also, this one will be lined up with string 5, fret 10. So I'm just gonna move it over here. And this is a G7. So this is a good one to study because it's key of no sharps, no flats. So I'm just gonna walk you through this real slowly, and I'll get to some of your questions. Thanks. Build off an E minor 11. Yeah, we'll do that. Give me one moment. Thank you for that. And thank you for the coffee icon. Appreciate it. All right, so I've got these notes here. Okay, I have G, B, F, and G. Okay, we can think of this as the root, third, flat 7, and the root. Okay. If I take this finger away, right, this third finger, then I'm going to keep these other notes just the same, and just so that I could finger this, I'm gonna rearrange my fingers. But for now, if I play those 3 notes, I'm gonna tuck my third finger away. If I play those same 3 notes, I took away string 5. I put this note, a tritone, away. That's the interval, which is 1 fret over. Okay. Then I've got a chord that I can call, let's call it C sharp 7, sharp 11, right? Because we're going to name it by the root note. So we change the root note to a note that is a tritone away from our original, and we're substituting it in. So we're playing it instead of the other one. So I hope that kind of makes sense. All right. Okay, let's get back to some questions and comments. Okay, so we've got, let's build an E minor 11. Okay, so the trick with E minor 11 is to include the flat 7, the flat 3, and the 11. Okay, so here's a good example. I'll give you a few of them. So in E minor 11, this is a real effective chord for that. I'm going to go through the fingerings here. So finger 1 on string 1, fret 5. Finger 4 on string 2, fret 8. Finger 3 on string 3, fret 7, and finger 2 on string 5, fret 7. And I'm going to share with you another concept here in a minute, but I want to show you this also in this position, which would be the same type of same chord, same notes. So I've just got fret 12, 12, 12, 10 here on strings 5, 4, 3, and 2. Okay, so same 4 notes. So that can function as your E minor 11. Now, another kind of concept is if you're in a measure or you have two measures, you don't necessarily need to play every note at one given time, right? So you can have a stretch of time where you maybe touch on some of these different chord qualities and voicings, right? So let me give you an example of that. So if you had E minor 7, right? Then you could play the 11 here, but we just lost the flat third. But that's kind of the concept I'm trying to make here, is that over time, right, you've got the E minor 11, you've played that voicing at least at one time in the measure or two measures. Now, kind of back to so D sus 9. Okay, I'll get to that one as well. Back to our concept from earlier. Steely Dan is a good example of, I would say, a rock band that has quite a lot of chords that, major 7 chords. I mean, you name it. So is that jazz, or is that influence of different sounds, right? Think of a language like English, and I'm sure this is common to other languages as well. We have a lot of borrowed words and phrases from French and other languages. So it's just kind of a thing in music as well. To think of it somewhat as a language, and thinking about if you just studied language just strictly on grammar and syntax and rules and didn't actually speak it, that might be interesting, right? But it would not be necessarily maybe practical, or like maybe you could hear what people were saying and kind of sort it out, the meaning, but maybe it would be hard to speak the language. I don't know. I haven't really done that, and I only speak one language, but hopefully you kind of get my point here a little bit. Like if you want to play jazz or improvisation or music, you kind of just gotta jump in and do it a bit, right? And now there are a lot of tools, iReal Pro and things, where you can kind of sound it out, try things, right? Play stuff that's not good, what does it sound to play real out? What does it sound like to play kind of inside? So so that's kind of my thoughts on that a little bit. I hope that's helpful for folks. So okay, so this is perfect because I'm just kind of opening this discussion up. So Anakin says Steely Dan isn't really that much of a rock band. Okay. More like jazz pop of its time. Okay. I could see that. Jazz pop of its time. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Let me know if anybody else has any thoughts on that. It's a long way to the top. I will admit I do not have an extensive AC/DC repertoire, or much of any AC/DC repertoire. I know some riffs and stuff, but I know that tune. I know it's a pretty popular tune. Let's see, D sus 9. So D sus 9, you might play kind of a bar here on from strings 5 to 2. That would be kind of a good voicing for that. Dire Straits, yeah, I've worked through a lot of those solos with students. Mark Knopfler, right? Incredible, really amazing guitar work. Um, and yeah, so I've gone through a lot of those solos with students. It's pretty incredible. Definitely admire. Okay, all right. Well, I'd just like to say I appreciate any super chat. Okay, thanks so much, Jason L. I appreciate it. Just kidding. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. JK. Yeah, just kidding. Okay, got it. Appreciate it all, y'all. I cannot play Mark Knopfler solo from memory. I would have to work that up. Um, Zarellis says, I have played for a long time with no music theory, but want to start learning and understanding deeper. What should I start by watching videos on music theory? Great question. So I really believe that it's incredibly powerful when you combine your ear and a developed ear with music theory, and those two things coupled together, I think are incredibly powerful. So trying to strengthen, each one of those sides, um, is really powerful. So I would start by searching up circle of fifths, understand key signatures, understand circle of fifths. I think a lot of folks on the internet are probably kind of getting ahead of some things and skipping some steps, because they're getting into the chord scales or the modes, and kind of not maybe even understanding the key signatures. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. So I would start with some basic knowledge of key signatures, very basic music theory. Music theory 101, or search something like that. Um, and kind of take it from there. As you develop, you'll get more and more specific with things. And I would say the kind of ultimate goal is to be able to hear all chromatic tones on any given harmony, right? And really be able to hear each one of those. Well, let's see, guys. I'm just about out of time. I got to get to my son's baseball game here and eat a little bit before that. Eric writes in, Steely Dan definitely had different eras. First album to Asia are very different. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Play Giant Steps. I haven't really played that tune in a while. I'll give you some voicings for it. There's some kind of chord melody. The melody itself is really pretty simple. It's the hard part of that is improvising on the tune. I can't say that I've played that one in quite some time, but so anyway, a little noodling on there, but I gotta get going. Softly as a Morning Sunrise. Great tune. Thanks, Green, for writing in. Thanks so much, Anakin Skywalker. Awesome. Had a long question, but you got to go. Here's a donation. I really appreciate it. Put your question in the comments, and I'll see if I can reply to you or see what I can do. So Thanks, everybody. This has been really an incredible live stream. I thank you so much for all of your comments and questions. I do apologize if I didn't get to a certain one. I hope I didn't overlook anyone. But yeah, thanks again. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a great practice session.